Originally, this video was solely going to be about the latest card reveals from Perfect Order, our next English set releasing on March 26th on Pokemon TCG Live. That all changed when the Pokemon Company officially announced the details for Perfect Order. And hoo boy, if you thought Phantasmal Flames was lacking from a competitive standpoint, just wait. Before I start really complaining, the pack arts for Perfect Order were shown off, revealing that Mega Zygarde EX, Meowth EX, Mega Starmie EX, and Mega Clefable EX will all be in the set. If you think it's weird that Meowth gets featured on a pack when it isn't a Mega in the so-called Mega Evolution era, there's a disappointing reason for that. As the English versions of Zygarde and Meowth confirm, Perfect Order will have just 88 cards before Secret Rares. That is an absolutely insanely low number, coming in under the previously insanely low number of Phantasmal Flames, which had only 94 cards before Secret Rares. Compared to the first main sets of previous years, Perfect Order is slightly more than half the size of Temporal Forces and Journey Together. Of course, part of the reason for this low set size is that Ascended Heroes, our next English set out on January 29th, includes many cards that should have been held back for Perfect Order. While Ascended Heroes is the final set of the I block, several J block cards like Mega Charizard and the starter trio will also be in it, inflating that set size to 217, though a lot of them will be reissues. All of this is to say, our Perfect Order set will likely be made up of a few stragglers from Japan's Start Deck 100, plus the full Japanese Nihil Zero set. Ninja Spinner, which launches in Japan this March and should feature Mega Greninja EX, will then be held back for our May set. Yes, I know it's confusing. What you need to know right now is that Perfect Order will have a total of 4 Mega EXs, 9 regular EXs, 25 trainers, and more than 120 total cards when you count Secret Rares. Pre-releases for Perfect Order will kick off on March 14th, and we don't currently know what the pre-release promos will be. Then when the set launches in TCG Live on March 26th, it's a safe bet the first free deck will be Mega Zygarde EX, and the second will likely feature either Mega Starmie or Mega Clefable. I'm not sure I'd be happy with a Mega Starmie EX deck on Live though, because the card's kinda underwhelming. For a single water, it does 120 damage to their active plus 50 to someone on their bench. With the loss of de-evolution to rotation and the prevalence of Monkey Dory, this could actually work against you. While it's impossible to say just how this rotation will affect Standard right now, taking one-shots is typically the go-to strategy unless you have Monkey Dory to help the math. With Mega Starmie, it just feels too weak. Sure, you might be able to take out a Monkey Dory and a Badoo on the same turn if you dust the monkey into the active, but then what? Terras have a built-in bench barrier, so they're protected from that 50 damage on the bench. And 120 is 3-shotting most relevant cards in Standard. Of course, there is also Nebula Beam, which does 210 damage for an Ignition Energy, allowing you to one-shot things like Fezandipiti and Latias and Meowth. But against a Kangaskhan deck that was able to get set up with multiple Monkey Dory, you're absolutely screwed. If you're thinking about putting Mega Starmie into a Frostlass deck for the spread attack, I think Mega Frostlass EX coming in Ascended Heroes is probably better. Not only does it evolve from Snow but it can take meaningful one-shots for a single energy if your opponent has as few as 6 cards in hand. All that being said, Mega Starmie could end up being the new Mega Lopunny. I mean, probably not, but with Jet Energy rotating, Lopunny gets less good, making it tougher to launch Gale Thrust. This could also have an impact on people using Lopunny as a Crustle and Cornerstone Masked Oderpon counter. At least with Starmie, you can Hilda for an Ignition Energy, then Nebula Beam for 210 as it goes through Crustle's and Oderpon's abilities. And worst case scenario, you can gust up a Fez or Meowth, then Nebula Beam them straight to hell. Maybe I'll be proven wrong in the coming months, but for now I can only give Mega Starmie 2 toes out of 5. We'll have more clarity about the meta later this month though when Japan gets hit with the G-Block rotation. So stay tuned for my very early post-rotation preview in a couple of weeks. Along with Zygarde, Clefable, and Starmie, the 4th Mega EX in Perfect Order is Skarmory. As much as I want every Mega Pokemon to be playable, that's just not the world we live in. And the fact that it was snubbed from the pack arts kinda shows what the Pokemon Company thinks of it. For 2 metal and a colorless, Skarmory does 220 damage to any one of your opponent's Pokemon at the cost of shuffling all energy back into the deck. Comparing it to another basic metal Mega, Mawile is better. Gobble Down can deal 400 damage if you take in 5 prizes, all for just 2 metal, which is a lot more splashable than Skarmory. And even though its secondary effect basically renders the attack useless in most situations, Huge Bite can potentially deal 260 damage for the same energy cost as Sonic Ripper. Plus, we can't forget that Terras have that stupid built-in bench barrier, meaning Skarmory isn't sniping any of the Oderpon, so it's mostly relegated to hitting things like Fezandipiti and Latias. To be fair, actually launching Skarmory's attack will be fairly straightforward. Just play it with Metang. Since Skarmory shuffles the energy into your deck, you can re-accelerate it the following turn with Metal Maker. But on the same day Skarmory's out, rotation will take all the G-Block cards including Bravery Charm. so it's unlikely to survive a revenge hit. At that point, you're much better off just playing Heatran, who's still the best metal basic in the game. Otherwise, you can always put a copy in something like Archaludon or Steven's Metagross. Skarmory's one saving grace is the free retreat, so if you start it, all hope isn't lost. Until they boss it up and easily KO it. So yeah, Mega Skarmory EX is a card that exists. Sure, it can take some KOs on bench EXs, including the upcoming Meowth EX that will be in most every deck, but even I know that spending 3 prizes to take 2 prizes is a worse trade than that wife swap I did with Travis Kelce. As a result, I'm also giving Skarmory 2 toes out of 5, noting that it seems worse than Mega Starmie overall. One new card that doesn't seem bad is Decidueye EX. In fact, this could end up being one of the most annoying archetypes in Standard if played correctly. First off, its ability means Decky Dewey can attack for a single grass if your opponent has exactly 4 cards in their hand. That's great because Crush Arrow normally takes a grass and 3 colorless, and the attack's actually super useful. Not only does it deal 240 damage, but it discards an energy from their active as well. So right off the Crobat, you can realistically create a Decky Dewey deck with just a foot full of grass energy in it. Add in the fact that Decidueye can maybe use Relicanth to copy Dartrix's Feather Shot for free, depending on the final translation of its ability to snipe 90 damage on a weak bench setter, and it gets even better. Obviously, the negative is the whole limiting your opponent's hand to 4 cards thing. Thankfully, we're getting a new Vivillon whose ability does just that, forcing them to put their hand on the bottom of their deck and draw 4. With Forest of Vitality, Bug Catching Set, and Pokepad, pretty much any grass deck can limit them to 4 cards every single turn starting turn 2. That alone makes Vivillon interesting, but obviously Decidueye specifically can use it to start dealing big damage and discard energy. If you have an irrational hatred of butterflies due to that one episode of Pokemon though, you can remove the Vivillon entirely and go with Judge. This is a shuffle draw 4 for both players, so it kinda screws you over as well. Still, the trade-off seems worth it, especially since you can use Pokegear or Meowth to find it. Unfortunately, with Palpad rotating, recycling your Judges will be tough, so Vivillon does seem necessary. That is, unless, and if you just now felt a bead of sweat roll across your smooth feet, there's good reason, because I'm going to mention Miracle Headset. No one in their right mind would waste their ace-spec slot on this, but it does get back to Judges. Now let us never speak of this card again. Leaning into the disruption side of things with Decidueye, Crushing Hammer and Enhanced Hammer are additional ways to discard their energy along with Crush Arrow. Plus, you can attach a handheld fan to further control their energy. Unfortunately, the Slime Mold Colony Toedscruel is rotating, so they can use Night Stretcher to recover lost basic energy. That definitely hurts the strategy a little bit. Oh, and if you're thinking Judge and Crushing Hammer are rotating, we know J-Block versions are being reprinted this year. And if you're worried about Decidueye's low damage, don't forget that Lilligant exists, boosting its damage by 20 and it stacks. I don't give my precious toes to non-megas, but if I did, Decidueye would probably be close to a 4. Dealing 240 damage for a single grass with a guaranteed energy discard has too much potential. Sticking with grass types, we have the new Grow Grass Energy, another type-specific special energy. This one provides a grass energy when it's attached, and if it's attached to a grass type, its hit points go up by 20. While it seems great upon first read, with a single one boosting Mega Venusaur to 400 HP, there's a major drawback. It's a special energy. Pretty much every meaningful grass deck in Standard runs Meganium, except Meganium only doubles basic energy, and Mega Venusaur only moves basic energy, and Teal Masked Ogerpon only accelerates basic energy. So Grow Grass Energy being special, like what the principal told my parents I was before moving me to a different classroom with a teacher who always spoke softly, kinda defeats the purpose of working with grass types. Basically, Grow Grass Energy good, but grass decks can't really use it effectively. And for something like Decidueye, while it could be great, Grow Grass can't be found with Bug Catching Set, so you'd have to run Hilda. If you're sad about Fire Off Armarouge rotating at the end of March, I've got some, well, not good news, more like news. The new Dewgong has the exact same ability except for water energy instead of fire. Except there's no Ethan's Ho-Oh for water types, which is pretty much the only reason why Armarouge is a thing in Standard. With some people calling it the second coming of Nagquag, which was a popular deck several years ago, you'll have to pair Dewgong with Team Rocket Spidops. Except neither of them are your attackers, so you have to put in something like Mega Kangaskhan or Wellspring Masked Ogerpon to take prizes. Except there's easier ways to get both of them powered up than running 2 separate stage 1s. So while Dewgong's ability is fun and has its uses, unless we get a good water type who can reliably take one-shots like say a Mega Chen-Pao or something, this combo won't come close to replacing the loss of Chen-Pao and Baxcalibur. We're going any sort of childish joke about a dinosaur jaw, let's start with the good on Tyrantrum. First off, the attack. For a fighting and a colorless, Wreak Havoc does 160 damage. Sure, it one-shots a Mega Kangaskhan and a few other things, but what you really care about is the secondary effect. You flip a coin until you get tails, and for each heads, the top card of their deck is discarded. Obviously, I'll never flip more than one heads at a time on PTCGL, but it's still useful in certain situations. What puts Tyrantrum over the top is Tyranno Guts, which I'm sure will be renamed in English to something less weird. If Tyrantrum has a special energy attached to it, that 180 hit points turns into 330. On a single prizer. That ties it with freaking Mega Lopunny. To top it off, Tyrantrum has access to Tyrant. Its Get Angry attack does 20 damage times the number of damage counters on it. Get Tyrantrum into play, attach a special energy, then plop down Relicanth, and now you can be dealing 600 or more damage if your opponent sucks at math. Now here's the bad news. Both Reversal Energy and Luxurious Cape will rotate the day Tyrantrum comes out. That immediately removes the two best cards this thing would have had access to. Hell, even Rock Chestplate's going. Instead, you'll have to run either Neo Upper Energy or Rock Fighting Energy to fulfill the special energy requirement. Except if you want to boost Tyrantrum's hit points even further, Hero's Cape's the best way, but then you can't play Neo Upper. For consistency and early game pressure, you can run Lunatone, Solrock, and Premium Power Pro. Counter gain will remain in Standard, so if you're losing, you can attach it to Tyrantrum and wreak havoc for a single Rock Fighting Energy. Or do the whole Get Angry Relicanth strategy. But no matter how good Tyrantrum seems in your head, the biggest drawback is Badoo. Every fossil Pokemon evolves from a fossil. Fossils are items. And Badoo shuts off items. Could I make it any more obvious? Badoo's likely going to be just as prevalent post-rotation, meaning if you go first and don't get the Jaw Fossil down turn 1, your entire strategy is delayed. Sure, Badoo's basically a free prize for Solrock, but it'll still slow you down. Plus, both Arven and TM Evolution are rotating on Perfect Order launch day, making getting your fossils that much tougher. I know it seems like I'm being my typical Debbie Downer self, probably because I am. Tyrantrum has so much potential to do great things in Standard, and maybe once Badoo's gone from Standard in March 2027 it will. For now though, it's going to struggle. It might be hard to believe, but I think Ash should have kept Raticate and not traded back for his Butterfree. I mean, Raticate never would have left to bang some hot Butterfly. Also, just like Tyrantrum, this is only the 4th Auroras card in history and the first since Forbidden Light in 2018. Compare that to Charcadet, who got like 7 cards in 1 year, and I think the Pokemon Company has a hatred for Auroras. Yet something like Avalugg gets a Hisuian form? Anyway, this wasn't worth the 8-year wait. While its attack prevents their active from attacking the following turn, we have a few other Pokemon already like that who never see play, so the only real spice is in its ability. Have Auroras in play, all of your Pokemon with water energy attached take 50 less damage from opponents' attacks. That's kinda not great, especially on a fossil. My first instinct is to pair it with Kangaskhan Bouffalante. 2 Bouffalante in play reduces the damage Kangaskhan takes by 60. Add in Auroras, that's another 50 for a total of 110. You will have to run Crispin and Water Energy to make this work, and the whole evolving from a fossil thing might not be worth taking out Monkey Dory, but I tried, okay? It's not my fault Aurora seems like bulk. Realistically, the only way Tyrantrum, and to a much lesser extent Auroras, see regular play is if we get something like Pokemon Research Lab or Amistar V again. Both allowed you to put a stage 1 that evolves from a fossil directly into play, which is exactly what fossil decks need to succeed. Unless you really believe in Kingdra EX, then I guess you could try to make that work with Auroras. But then you'd have to check yourself into a mental hospital, and that's a whole thing. As the former #1 Pokemon TCG Live player, Perfect Order is shaping up to be a massive disappointment from a competitive standpoint. 88 cards is nothing, and what I've seen so far doesn't do anything to make me think Dragapult EX won't be by far the best deck post-rotation. Speaking of rotation, it's been officially confirmed by the Pokemon Company that all G-Block cards will leave Standard on March 26th in TCG Live and April 10th in real life. That shouldn't come as a surprise to any of you because I mentioned that in my rotation primer video linked in the description. What might be a shock is that after 4 years, TCG Live is finally maybe getting full expanded support. It'll probably be rolled out in phases starting later this year, though we don't know the specifics. But considering that I encountered a few different issues in my recent expanded gameplay video, I don't have high hopes that the rollout will be smooth. I'll have the full reveal of all 80 cards from Japan's Nihil Zero set next week, which should then be folded into Perfect Order at the end of March. Unless Mega Clefable is great, it's looking like Perfect Order will be dominated by Meowth and Barbaracle, with Decidueye and Mega Zygarde having a chance to do something. And for those wondering, no, we still don't know if Pokepad will be in Ascended Heroes or Perfect Order. My toes are all the way crossed for Ascended Heroes, but we won't know for sure until later this month. As for Mega Gallade EX, that's skipping Perfect Order and might not arrive until the May set at the earliest. To help spread this video to as many people like we're at a rally in 2020, comment your thoughts down below on the new cards.